So in wrestling, I've managed to speak to wrestlers, announcers, commentators, but I've never spoke to a photographer. Well, today is going to be that day. Are we excited?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course, we have got loads to talk about. We're going to be talking about photography, and photography. Is that right?
Let's do this.
Of course. Intern, roll the intro. And I'm delighted to be joined by, and his words exactly was, the fifth photographer in the UK. You said that, not me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100% agree with that one. There's
What?
there are some absolutely incredible wrestling photographers in the UK, and I'm incredibly lucky to be doing what I'm doing. But yeah, there's people out there.
Yeah.
James Musselwhite, Beyond Gorilla, them two are like my absolute kind of like. James Musselwhite is my muse. Like, I think that guy is one of the most incredible kind of photographers in general. But his wrestling photography, where I first saw his Cara Noir book, and I was like, this is what wrestling photography can and should be. But then people like Bear Vision Media, who's been doing some just ridiculously good work.
Yeah, the thing is, I can think of a few, of course. And now, normally, I obviously reach out to wrestlers about coming on the show, but this one was a little bit different because you kind of reached out to me weirdly.
Yeah, I've been seeing the work like you're kind of doing, and I've seen the work that you've done with like not wrestlers as well. And yeah, I noticed that there was no other kind of wrestling photographers. So I was like, hey, hello, I'll talk. And yeah, the stuff we did with Rich Young, like Youngie, absolutely. So yeah, I was like, hey, maybe people might want to know about me. I don't know about my work. They've probably seen my name somewhere and been like, I don't even know who he is. Like, it's me. Oh, yeah.
Now, the good thing is now, obviously, I speak to art shows, and you're so down to earth. We have a good laugh. But when live obviously shows the rolling, you're in like a weird zone, you're in like a zone and stuff like that. Because that's one thing I noticed, that you're absolutely just so focused on your job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like the first part of that is like the fans are what make the shows, and you see the same kind of people everywhere, and people like yourself who are doing like all these shows all over the country. Like, and these shows wouldn't happen without you. Like, nobody's going to wrestle in front of nobody. And then the second bit, yeah, when I'm in work mode, like, and I'm working, I've got to be. And part of that is so I don't get kicked in the face, because that has happened. 2-bit give me a right good kick to the head once through the camera. I got the shot though. That's what matters. But no, yeah, part of it is I'm working in that moment, so I'm kind of like always like kind of looking at what's happening and what's about to happen, because I think that's a really kind of big skill that a wrestling photographer needs. It's not necessarily what's happening in that second, but what's about to happen, and then getting yourself in that position to be able to capture that. So I think knowing wrestling is a huge kind of benefit.
Absolutely. So 2 shows you're obviously involved with, which we know really well, is obviously in GW. We was there obviously at the weekend. Talk about obviously starting obviously in GW photography.
Yeah, so my kind of journey into wrestling photography started with NGW's kind of over 18 brand, which was called WrestleVerse, which was like part comedy, part kind of like serialized alternative universe. And I saw that they had a show coming up in Hull, and being a Hull boy, I was and still am a concert photographer, a gig photographer, and shooting wrestling is something I always wanted to do. I thought it was a bit like a bucket list kind of thing that I wanted to do. So I shot my shot and was like, hello, I shoot these kind of things. I was wondering if you need a photographer. Expecting like nothing or no. And then there was like, yeah, sure, pop down. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll be there. And that kind of was it, really. My first ever match that I shot was Speedball Mike Bailey versus Rampage, which is just, I mean, two of the absolute best at what they do. So I was incredibly fortunate that was kind of started my career. So after the show, I sent the photos through, and they really liked them. And Matt Myers, who was on the show, reached out and was like, these are really different. These are really kind of not typical wrestling photography photos. And we kind of just got chatting, and then he invited me to come along to another show. And then Rich Dunn, the booker and promoter and owner of NGW, asked me to do the next NGW show, and it kind of just all started to roll from there, really. So
interesting.
Just shoot your shot. Honestly, shoot your shot. That is like such a big thing in wrestling, isn't it? Like, shoot your shot, and that's what I did. I was like, "Can I do this?" And I got a yes.
So how did the BWR stuff come about?
So yeah, like I said, Myers invited me. He was saying like, "I've got a show. It's in Cleethorpes. Did you fancy coming?" And obviously, I was like, absolutely. Like, I would love that opportunity. So I just kind of turned up, and a very, very similar thing, and did the show, sent the photos, and same kind of response. Like, oh, these are the usual type of wrestling photos that we get. Like, would you like to do the next show? Of course, absolutely, yeah. So like NGW is like my home promotion, but BWR is like my adopted home promotion, if you will. I'm part of their team now, part of the BWR family. So I'm involved in kind of some of the background stuff as well. But yeah, BWR and NGW are like incredibly close to my heart. And then it kind of, your name gets out there, and as wrestlers kind of always tag your photographer. That's very important. Because my name gets out there, and then other promotions reached out and was like, hey, we like this, would you fancy coming to this, and are you available to shoot this? And that's it. It just rolled from there, really.
Yeah, and the other show I've just mentioned, forgot about it, is obviously True Grit, which was obviously a recent show I saw earlier. So you're always you're always working like different job promotions. We'll talk about True Grit.
True Grit again reached out and was like, hey, we need a photographer for this event. Would you mind coming down? There was a car from Hull, so Dara, who I will speak about massively. Dara Diablo is an incredible person, incredible wrestler. His look and style is unlike kind of anybody else's. But I'm kind of Dara's little son. I jump in Dara's car and he drives me all around the country, basically. But yeah, so shot True Grit. First time I've shot those guys, and they're doing something absolutely incredible. That Leeds and York kind of area, they're building something really special. Like, their shows look like incredible, and the roster and the talent, and then the stories that they've got there are phenomenal. But yeah, I've only shot one of their shows. So if there's any other shows, True Grit, hit me up. You know where I am.
There you go. So one thing I was sorry.
The other one was Rise. So Rise again, Yorkshire. I shoot a lot of Rise shows. They were completely different kettle of fish, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So one thing you obviously see is wrestlers backstage. So you see, like, let's say behind the curtain, a little thing. I mean, for you as a wrestling fan, that's got to be really, really cool.
Oh, incredible! Like I'm so fortunate. Like, you know, I've been a wrestling fan the majority of my life. I'm nearly 40. I started watching when I was about 5 years old. I never thought I'd be in a position where I can call some of them friends, like genuine friends. Like I could text Myers now saying I need help with this, and he'll be here. Being backstage, you know, it's a sacred place. Is backstage at a wrestling show, as you can imagine. That's where all the magic kind of starts to happen behind that curtain. But like, you know, being backstage at, for example, a 1PW show, you know, I was a huge, and am a huge TNA fan. You know, that was the kind of the real alternative to me when I kind of started to outgrow WWE a little bit and the way that they present wrestling. TNA was like, okay, this is different. So then being at a 1PW show and sat down sharing a Greg sandwich with Frankie Kazarian, like what kind of a world am I living in right now? And then there's Rhino over there, and there's CD Christopher Daniels, like, and then Matt Cardona's next to me as well, like, and it's like incredible. Hanging out with Will Ospreay. I'll tell a little story about Will Ospreay backstage. That keeps the magic alive. But so Nathan Cruz is one of the trainers over at the Evo Academy. So Evo Academy is the BWR training facility, and they've got some incredible wrestlers coming through that academy and under the kind of umbrella and of Myers and Cruz and Robbie X as well. But Nathan had a couple of students who was at the 1PW show, and he brought them backstage and introduced them to Will Ospreay, and just asked Will if he wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of, you know, a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of kind of like advice to two kind of young upstarts. And Will spent about an hour giving them like a seminar, if you will, like sharing kind of ideas and what to do, what not to do. And Will did not have to do that. Like he really didn't. He's
No.
Will effing Ospreay, you know what I mean? Being able to kind of see that and kind of document that was absolutely incredible for me. Like, and I do absolutely appreciate the fact that I get to see some incredible things behind that curtain. Then those two students are now, one of them is in a tag match at BWR next week, and the other one was Vusic, who you are familiar with.
I am, yes. And it's funny you mentioned that actual story, because I think I remember being at the VIP at one of the 1PW shows, and Richard Young actually talked about that actual story. But I didn't know it was Vusic.
Yeah, Vusic. If you're not familiar with Vusic, all I'll say is you will be familiar with him, because that kid is a special, like, young talent.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's absolutely terrific. Every show I've been in, to obviously been part of it, and he's so great in the ring. I've even obviously interviewed him as well, so I'm so happy with that.
Oh yeah, his in-ring talent and his presentation is obviously, as a photographer as well, shooting somebody like that with that kind of those facials and that kind of intensity, like capturing, and that is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I love that.
Absolutely. So I want to obviously focus a little bit more obviously on photography. So what's a typical day for you at a wrestling show? So from start to finish, what's a typical day for you?
So yeah, I arrive at the venue, production meeting. So kind of going through the matches, and then like just getting a reading for like the settings of the lights and stuff like that. You know, production in wrestling shows is you get some absolutely massive, you know, like Pixelate are doing some ridiculous entrance ways, like yeah, just kind of going through there. Then if they want promo stuff, I'm not a huge kind of promo guy, backdrops and lights. I do more kind of in ring and then some kind of like candid backstage stuff. So wrestlers will kind of like come up and ask if we can go and find somewhere and do something. So yeah, it's that kind of more candid backstage kind of social media stuff that I tend to do. Yeah, and then to work really, shooting the show, getting kind of in there and hopefully capturing some moments.
So on average, how many photos could you take at one show? So for example, the NGW show recently, how many photos did you actually take just in that venue alone?
1,749.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, the biggest part is like culling those down. So average kind of actual show stuff is a couple of hundred, which is still like way too many. Myers, again, who's been like really influential on my career, he kind of said early on that nobody cares about moves, they only care about moments. So capture that. So really, you only need entrance, the heel up, the face up, the finish, holding a belt or celebrating. So you really need about 5 or 6 actual photos. But then, yeah, actually like kind of capturing the moments of the match. Like I think you should be able to look through an album of a match, the photos of a match, and kind of be able to see the story. If you wasn't there, you should be able to view the album and say, oh, this is what happened in this match, and this was the tone of the match. And if you can capture who the heel is and who the babyface is in stills, and not if you had no prior knowledge and you can go look at a picture and go, oh, they're a bad guy, then I personally think I've done a good job with that. That's how I tend to do it. Capturing those moments in between the moves. Everybody knows what a DDT looks like, don't they? Everybody knows what a suplex looks like. But nobody knows what a DDT, or very few people know what a DDT feels like. So if I can take a picture and it captures that's what a DDT looks like, feels like to take, then that's what I'm trying to get.
Absolutely. So I've got a picture, obviously, from that show, and I thought this captured it really, really well, which is, of course, Lizzie and obviously Falcon. We know this is the big feud, obviously, in NGW, but that I think you just mentioned there, that picture there catches it alone. Do you know what I mean? 2 influential people, and they're going to... This a rivalry so big. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Lizzie is... We all know how special Lizzie is. I don't think we need any other podcast saying how incredibly special Lizzie is, because we all know. So that photo, yeah, you've got the stare down. Lizzie had just had a match. Alexis had just had the match with Lucy, and Lizzie came out at the end, and that kind of gauntlet was thrown down, and that picture's the stare off at the end. No physicality, just you know what that picture is. So yeah, that's kind of the capture that I wanted.
Definitely. And the other one which I like, which is special to me, weirdly, is this one. Now, any particular reason why this is special to me?
Every person in that photo has been on your podcast.
That is correct. And you can tell, I mean, they're the bad guys. They've had a little bit of a beat down. So, again, it's like you just mentioned there, capturing, that moment?
Yeah. You can see it. End of the match. Miles is out there to throw down his challenge. New gen versus old gen. So that match is going to be at Hull City Hall, which is the most beautiful venue to shoot in. Like, it is a really special venue to me. But just the grandiose of the City Hall. There's not many kind of places that feel special, but like Doncaster Dome, like shooting in there was just like, for me, an absolute dream. I know you was at those shows, and that place just felt electric the moment you walked in.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, I have so many memories, from 1PW. It's well documented what happens. We don't need to go down that route, but do you know what I mean? I met so many great people, so many great friends. I even got to meet Will Ospreay, who's obviously an idol of mine. So I'm really, really happy at that.
Yeah. 1PW was a special kind of thing. Really, it was that lightning in a bottle with some of the world's kind of best international and UK talent. And I think for all of its faults that we don't need to talk about, but 1PW really showcased the British talent, and we got to see some matches that nobody thought we'd get to see in the UK. But yeah, special. It was a special little time. It's very sad that it kind of did what it did, but yeah, let's all remember it fondly for what it was.
Exactly. So you sent me obviously some of your work, and these were obviously your favorite images. So I picked 5 out, and basically you're going to talk about and why you like these so much. So the first image I've got is this one when it decides to work. Did we see that one? Go try that again.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's backstage at the first 1PW show, and that's Lizzie before her match with Mickie James. So Mickie James is an absolute idol to a lot of women wrestlers. Like, what she's done in women's wrestling is So that was Lizzie just taking a moment of kind of reflection about the evening and what's going to happen. So I really like that. It captures the kind of captures a different side to Lizzie that people don't often see. They see the loud Scouser lass who goes around slapping everybody and kicking people's heads in. So it was kind of a calm and kind of in thought moment. So I really like that image and just the kind of the story behind it.
The next one is obviously one of my favorites, and it's obviously Cara Noir. Now, I obviously became aware of him back in obviously the 1PW days, but
yeah,
I mean, when you think of Cara Noir, the guy has got his gimmicks so down to a T. I mean, it's a shame that he's obviously injured now. I wish him all the well, but talk about that image.
So that image is taken from the second Wrestleverse show, and it was in a rubbish little nightclub called the Welly in Hull. And yeah, so that's Cara. His entrance is something special, and capturing his entrance was something that I really, really, really was looking forward to. One of my favorite ever matches is Cara Noir versus Pac at Riptide. It's free on YouTube. It is beautifully shot, and that's kind of the first time I was introduced to Cara. Also, one of my favorite wrestling photographers, James Musselwhite, did a huge kind of like book and a feature on Cara, and so Jim Myers again. So during that show, before the show, when we was just kind of all chatting and hanging out, so I actually had a picture of Tom Cara Noir as my background wallpaper on my phone, one of James Musselwhite's, and I was just reading a text, and Myers was looking over my shoulder and saw that was my lock screen. I'd not been introduced to Cara at that point, and he was like, "Oh, Cara, come over here! Look what he's got on his phone." Just absolutely stitched me up, made me look like a proper little fanboy. But I then had like a 20-minute conversation with Cara Noir about my favorite match that he's ever had, and So that was really special for me. So being able to kind of capture that, and the light and the smoke is all from the stage and the production, but I just managed to capture that exact moment the spotlight kind of just bounced off the mask, which just it's one of my favorite images. It means an awful lot to me, and it is just an example of just capturing that exact second. Because if I'd have took that picture a second later, it just wouldn't have bounced right. It wouldn't look as epic.
No, not at all. And we spoke about obviously 1PW, and I want to talk about the first show in Lincoln, which was probably one of my when I think back to this is probably my favorite match. Will and obviously Robbie, horrific match, and I've got to be honest, that looked like it hurt.
It sounded like it hurt, and it looks like it hurt. There's so Beyond Gorilla has got a incredible photo of Gunfer doing Walter doing his big chop, and you can see the ripple in the chest, and it's an image that I've always wanted to capture, that chest ripple, and that's the kind of, it was a perfect one. But yeah, so that is like my kind of I don't know, like tribute to what Beyond Gorilla does. It's my take on it. I'll never be as good as him, but yeah, incredible. But that match, again, anybody that's seen that match or was there got took on an absolute ride on that match, because it was them two put absolutely everything into it, and Robbie X is undoubtedly the best cruiserweight this country has to offer. Right? I don't think there's many people who would argue with that.
The one thing I like as well is when you watch it back, obviously on film, it's so good. You know what I mean? Even like Joe Dabrowski, into like his style for like how he delivers that match is terrific.
Yeah. So Mark Ashley, who's a videographer, he's works kind of everywhere. He's BWR's photographer, so I get to spend a lot of time running around the back of him, trying not to get in his camera shot. But he captures wrestling like so beautifully. So yeah, again, I think that match is probably available on YouTube. All matches are available on YouTube, aren't they? But yeah, if you get a chance to watch it, like that is a special match.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got two more images, and this is probably one of my favorites, and it is Mr. Cruz. What the hell is going off here?
So, like I said, I'm not a promo guy. I'm not a backdrop promo photographer. But Nathan asked me if I wanted some practice, and asked me to kind of come along to the Evo school and do some promo pics for people, just so I could work on it. And he needed some images for WrestleCrate. So that was taken for WrestleCrate. That's the monthly kind of sign up thing where you get a signed picture in it. And that was one for them. Again, Nathan is one of the best professional wrestlers. And again, he's taught me so much about wrestling. Being able to share kind of car journeys with Nathan is special. Like, I don't think there's many people, again, that would argue that he's not one of the best professional wrestlers. He can work anything, like any style. Like his sports entertainment stuff is some of the best. Right? And his character is he is a professional wrestler. That is Nathan's character, because he is a professional wrestler. But yeah, phenomenal. I love that. I love that image. Just Nathan's intensity in that image and capturing that. Yeah, it's a special one. I like it.
And we've got one more to choose, and I think this guy's one of the most creative ones in the UK, and it's of course Mr. Crowley.
Yeah.
Every single promo I see of him is stuff online. Did you see the video posted about everyone needs to hear this?
He's a weird little man, isn't he? He's a weird little cheeky bugger. So that image taken backstage at a show, and yeah, it was Crowley being Crowley, just hiding in little plain corners, just being all weird like and watching everything. So the kind of story of the matches at the time he was having is that he was left out, and his tag team partners all abandoned him, and he ended up getting beat up, and he had no friends, and he was just sat on some stairs, being all trickstery and Crowley. Weirdly, at the bottom of the stairs that you can't see was John Morrison and Taya Valkyrie warming up for their matches. And he's just there, been there, well, sat and being very strange.
I think did you show me the image for that one?
I think I've posted it. I think it's somewhere. It's somewhere out there. But that was the engine shed.
Yes, it was.
Where Crowley used to work.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he used to work there when he went to uni. So there we go. Full circle moment for him wrestling in that building.
There you go. There you go. So one thing I've always wondered is, being a photographer, are you critical of your own work? Like, do you look back at a picture going, ooh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I look back at some of the fair shows that I shot, and I was like, what was I thinking? Like even if it's like the editing or the, my style's kind of evolved over the last, so it's 5 years with a year-long break because of COVID. So about 4 years I've been shooting wrestling. But yeah, absolutely. Like the editing process and the culling process, and the, wrestling happens so quickly in front of you. So capturing it, you don't get redos. You have to capture that exact moment, and if you miss it by a millisecond, like that picture's gone. So yeah, there's been shots that I've missed and really wish that I didn't. But yeah, absolutely. I think any artist, look at me, but anybody creative or any artists out there will know that the biggest critic is always themselves. And I think it's important for anybody in the kind of creative arts is to not trust that little voice that says you're rubbish and why are you even doing this? Because like imposter syndrome kicks everybody's head in. So yeah, I look at my body of work, and there's definitely images I'm super proud of. I work hard at doing this. I really care about wrestling, and I really care about photography. But yeah, there's even just seeing those, then I was like, oh, if I'd have just done this, right? But yeah. Unfortunately, it's just captured a moment in time, which is all photography is about.
Yeah, of course. So, one thing, what's the process after obviously a show? So, let's say you've got your photos. What's the process after?
Sleep probably first. Those long car drives homes. But no, import the photos, and like I say, you normally save about 10% of what you actually shoot. So the first one for me is kind of reviewing the images, seeing what's worked, what's not worked, and then editing, so color correcting or making it have the iWilBurn art look of a style. In the kind of, thank you Adobe for allowing me the tools to be able to do that. And then I upload them all to like an album. It's an online gallery. Those go to the promoter puts them on their socials, and then they go to the boys and girls who work the shows for them to put on their Instagrams and Twitters. Editing process takes about 8 hours or so, depending on the show. Can be more, but yeah, it's a long process. So once the show's done and I've done that kind of 8-hour shift of traveling to the show and shooting the show, and then all the handshakes after. Oh, there's a lot of sitting around at wrestling shows. There's loads of that, and then the drive home, and then editing. So, an actual show is about 16 hours work, really.
Wow. How do you fit like 8 hours in just editing stuff? Do you do it like in sections, or do you just do it fully straight 8 hours?
Well, no. So I have 2 lovely children at home and a wife and a full-time job. So it's normally throughout a few days, a couple of hours on an evening. But yeah, just put some music on and lots of strong cups of tea and just work it. But I really enjoy it. That part for me is actually one of the most enjoyable parts. Like seeing, when you're shooting, you don't get a chance to kind of look at the photos as you're doing it and seeing it's kind of, so sometimes it's a surprise. I'll shoot it and be like, oh, that's a good picture. I didn't know I'd done that one. So, yeah, I'm pressing that shutter button a lot. But yeah, that's the editing is one of the most like kind of fun parts for me, is sitting down and reviewing it and putting the matches together. I love it. It's great.
So you can end up with like 1,700 pictures, but then by the time you've done an editing, you could end up with like what, 800 as a guess?
No, less. So like I say, it's between 2 and about 200, 300 per show, depending on how many matches they are. And the story points in there. But yeah, it's about 10% ish of what I actually shoot.
Interesting. So for a little more questions and begin to wind down, for people who's thinking of like getting into photography and stuff like that, what would you say to them?
Getting into it in wrestling photography, like get into it for the right reasons. And if the reason you want to do it is to hang out with wrestlers backstage and to get to know the wrestlers and get some free tickets, then that is absolutely the wrong reason to be doing it. If you want to showcase your art and capture some really unique kind of things, then and definitely. But practice and reaching out. There's nothing else like it. But there's so many kind of small independent kind of shows in the UK now that reaching out to those people and shooting like training and starting with training, capturing that and kind of learning how to capture those movements and the position, like ring positioning where you need to be. I'm in an average show, I'm constantly moving around that ring. I must put in some right steps. But yeah, I think I mean, shoot your shot, do it. I reached out to a wrestling promotion. I was really lucky that they said yes. But and then just gaining that trust. Like the whole wrestling industry is built on trust, and respect. So yeah, earning that and just putting a shift in is the way to do it. But most modern cameras now are so good, so incredible. You don't have to have millions of pounds worth of gear. Just a good, solid, trusty camera and a good eye for it really is where you need to start. It's definitely how I started. And having something new, unique, if you can have that, a look or a style, the iWilBurn art look, as I call it, is something I've kind of developed and tried to put together. I want people to kind of see a photo and say, oh, Simon took that. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for now, is you can look at a photo and go, oh, I know who took that, without looking at the tag or the watermark.
So how long did it take you obviously to come up with your own style? For like 5 years. Did it take a couple of years?
Yeah, I had an idea of kind of how I wanted to present it, which was more of the kind of the cinematic-y looking, not just pictures of wrestling. I wanted it to look more like a movie, because wrestling is a movie. It's a live action film happening right in front of your face with a story. And yeah, I wanted to kind of emulate that. So a little bit more kind of like the grittier side, a little bit kind of more of the emotion and the raw emotion. But yeah, I had plenty of misses when I first started. It didn't look as good as I thought it did, looking back. But that's growth and learning kind of what it is you want and working on that. But yeah, definitely. I think I try to improve every show, and the best photo I've ever taken is one I haven't taken yet. And that's the way that I kind of do it. I constantly want to get better. I constantly want to, present wrestling the best way that I can, the people in wrestling the best way that I possibly can. And there's some huge shows coming up that I'm really looking forward to.
Exciting. I can't wait for that. So one final question is, for a photographer like yourself, do you have any goals you like to achieve for the rest of the year?
I think, again, for me, it's just capturing the best out there. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I would absolutely love to shoot AEW when they come to the UK again. Like, AEW is, again, a bucket list. Like, I would absolutely love to shoot one of their shows. I would really love to shoot a Rev Pro show. And I think just kind of making the right steps to see if that could happen one day, and just presenting the best version of wrestling that I can through photography. And yeah, there's some incredible things happening in the UK and incredible talents like that are coming up. ZZ, for example, is the future of women's wrestling. Like, give that girl a couple of years and oh my God, like, she is going to do some incredible things. And the same with Vusic. Miles Kamen, who is an incredible talent who should be booked absolutely everywhere. But just being able to kind of capture these people on their journeys, like that's really cool for me. I got to shoot Leon Slater in one of his training matches. So before he'd done like a big show, I managed to go down to the PPW and shoot him. So I've got pictures of him before he was a professional wrestler. So that's like super amazing for me. Like, being able to see these people on their journeys, like I love that. But yeah, I just want to keep working hard and see where I end up. A local promotion near you.
That's a lovely little thing to end on. So before we do our outro, is there anything you'd like to plug, my friend?
BWR in a couple of weeks. They've got a big show kind of coming up. And I think they've put out some teasers and things about what might be happening. So definitely keep an eye on BWR and NGW at the City Hall coming up, which is always like an incredible show. Rise are doing some, Rise things. If you're a deathmatch wrestling fan, they are kind of the promotion in the UK. And I know not everybody is, but I am. I absolutely love capturing death matches. Yeah, I think the art and the beauty of what they can do is it's phenomenal.
There's only one name when you think of death matches in the UK, and that's Big Effing Joe.
Yeah, Big Effing Joe is, again, character larger than life. Capturing his matches is always special. But people like Clint Margera, who is just one of the most kind of incredible people, but also he can turn deathmatch into an art. People think it's hitting each other with glass, and it is a little bit of that. But if you can make that into a piece of art and a story, which he manages to do, I think that's incredible. But Now I'm just listing all the people that I like, aren't I, really?
Hey, it's about you, not me. So you fire away.
No, but yeah, I think the UK scene is on fire at the minute. I really do. I think there's promotions, running huge show. Ref Pro did like 4,000 people at their big show. 4,000 people for an independent is like AEW don't even get that for some of their live shows. Like 4,000 people traveling in the UK to go and watch wrestling. Like that is special for me. Like that is incredible.
It is, of course, and yeah. This has been an absolute, really, really fun chat. It's been one of my bucket lists to get a photographer on. So I hope you've had a blast.
Yeah, just iWilBurn art on Twitter and Instagram if you want to see some pictures of wrestlers doing some cool stuff.
There you go. Go check that out. There you go. So the Magic of Wrestling, of course, is back this Saturday as we're looking at storylines in wrestling. So I've got a question for you to end the show. Which is, if you can think of a storyline off top of the bat which sticks out for you, can be past or present, go.
So really special one for me is the story of Scotty Rock. So BWR told that story over a year, and it's still ongoing. And I have cried 3 times at a wrestling show. And I'm not a massive crier, surprisingly, but 3 times I've cried at wrestling. One of them was Scotty Rock winning the Cruiserweight Championship and how he managed to do that. And then now the downfall of Scotty Rock, and he's now all horrible and evil and turned his back on his friends. But I think if you can run a story for over a year and keep people invested, like you are doing something really, really good. If we're talking non kind of UK, Rockstar Spud versus EC3, the story that they told in Impact was a beautiful, beautiful story.
Yeah, do you know what? That's surprising because not many people talk about the Impact storylines because I feel like they don't get the love.
No, again, TNA Impact are really, really big for me. But the story that them two told, again, like Rockstar Spud, being able to get that emotion out of you is incredible. And wrestling's its best when there's a great story there. It's cool to see 2 flippy boys doing flippy stuff, and it's cool to see 2 big guys doing punches and stuff. But if you can tell a story, like that's special.
It is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think any others, but Ace Matthews and Boy at BWR again cried my eyes out at the end of that because the payoff was just so big. And then a personal favorite is Ricky Knight Jr. versus Hardman Dan. 2 kind of champions at the time. Just had a scrap because there was both champions, and the story that they told throughout that was just beautiful. But yeah, storylines in wrestling, do it.
There you go.
Otherwise, it's people just in their pants, isn't it?
Thanks for watching, guys.